This is one of those basic isekai stories called World of the Seven Colors, where a high school kid named Lee Guan gets reincarnated to save the world from destruction. It's one of those plots where the kind of power the characters have is ridiculously over the top, and every single time he only makes it out alive by the skin of his teeth. On top of that, there are some totally crazy waifus who are always trying to kill the poor guy. There's a secret organization, he gets betrayed by his friends. Basically, everything bad that could happen to him does. And of course, when a story is trashed like this, a lot of people end up liking it, right? Our protagonist was no different. He laughed at everything the guy went through. But would he still be laughing if he were the one in that world? The scene cuts to the kid running, carrying some swords, and someone calls him Rudian, seeing the massive stone beast coming in for a punch. He knows that if it lands, he'll be nothing but pulp. The creature smashes down behind him as he runs, and he quickly hands the sword over to Sir Eidos, gives the shield to Sir Colin, and bolts immediately. But of course, he's not treated well. These people are all ungrateful bastards, and now the monster is about to crush him for real, but Eidos steps in front and saves the boy. Standing there, he says with emotion that he's always grateful for the hard work of these folks. Then the man charges forward, slices the golem clean in half, and it crashes to the ground while our boy gets thrown back, ending up covered in blood. It's been 3 years since he reincarnated into the body of a 14-year-old boy in this world. On the bright side, he got all the memories. On the downside, he found out the boy's life was a complete mess. Reality hit hard, he had no talent whatsoever, and his life here was basically a waste. Suddenly, a blonde kid in the background calls out to everyone, saying the holy sword and the treasures are waiting for them. He's confident no wonder will be stopped by such weak monsters. That's the heir of the Eska region known as Kalain Van. He's your typical spoiled rich kid, flaunting all of his gear just because he's in hair, but in reality, all he does is try to hype up the group. Well, hype them up in a way, since everyone actually gets annoyed with him. He's like that extra character who's useless, yet somehow he's our protagonist's boss. Which means our boy isn't even the sidekick of the main guy, he's the sidekick of the sidekick. He's not just at rock bottom. Dig past the bottom of the pit, and that's where you'll find him crying. And to make it worse, this kid doesn't even have a promising future, meaning he's the sidekick of a guy destined to fail. The story of this world is also pretty terrifying. The creatures that appear are insanely destructive. Enemies in this place pop up out of nowhere and destroy entire cities or even nations. But before there's much time to think, they're already heading into another fight with the hellish minotaurs. Rudian knows there's no way he can survive in a world like this. But first, let's go back and see how he ended up in these dungeons. He takes a slap to the face and someone asks him what he did. That's Countess Louisa, the mother of Kalain, the blonde show-off, telling him she hired trash like him to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen. Apparently, all our boy can do is mutter a sad apology. He throws a look at Kalain, who just turns away like he doesn't want to make eye contact. Rudian is thinking about getting rid of that smug blonde brat. The guy has loads of money and struts around the city doing whatever he pleases. Back in his room, Rudian's exhausted. Most of the problems in his life are because of Kalain. And it's not even that Kalain directly messes with him, he causes trouble in the city for other people, and Rudian ends up taking the blame. He tells Kalain that Sir Volton is angry because he laid hands on his little sister. "Oh, Kalain, you just pulled the waifu into this boy's life." And then he warns him that the Count is furious because he's been making deals with the black market. That one makes Kalain jump, pacing back and forth, muttering that he's screwed. He asks if he's in trouble, and Rudian tells him it's obvious. This is the 15th mess he's caused this month. The problem is, it always falls on him. He can't understand why Kalain keeps acting like this. He's basically walking around with the Empire's biggest headache. And that's not even the worst of it. He's Kalain Iskar, and they're in the Eska region. He owns everything here. The issue is, he only causes trouble in front of the nobles, then goes out partying with his friends. The bastard knows how to enjoy life, lucky for him, miserable for everyone else. Kalain says he was just enjoying himself, but Rudian asks why it's that every single time he has to be seen doing something. Kalain replies that he was trying, to gather information on some secret operations, and judging by the look Rudian gives him, he's about ready to wring his neck. You can tell Kalain isn't a bad person in the sense of being evil. He's just bad in the sense that he was born with a 16 IQ. The worst part is that recently, the head of the household, Kalain's father, has been trying to improve the city's and the family's reputation, yet the kid keeps causing trouble over and over again. The problem for Rudian is that he's the one who has to fix all of it, and at this rate, it's just not working anymore. Already pulling his hair out, he tells Kalain to get ready, because soon he's going to lose his title as heir, and then they're both screwed. Side by side, they'll be sent to the guillotine, and that will finally end the shame his father feels for having a son like him. There was only one way out of this crisis. Kalain knocks on the door, and the two of them walk in, legs shaking like overcooked noodles. The Sabigododo asks if they've finally come to talk. Rudian's plan this time was to expose everything this delinquent brat Kalain has been doing. The father's name is Ricard, and the man with the scar on his face is Captain Derek, who seems to understand the suffering Rudian goes through, probably because he's in the same boat. He glances indirectly at Rudian while saying that this time's mistake was massive, and it's going to be hard to make it out alive. Ricard says, "I've heard this incident was huge. Do you have any idea who these people are that you messed with? Honestly, don't these guys look like Titans from Attack on Titan? Look at the size of those balloon heads. The father continues explaining that they're from one of the 5 largest knight organizations in the Imperial Empire, and now they're looking to eliminate Colleen. That's when it hits Rudian. The problem was much bigger than he thought. If it involved the Imperial Knights, they were done for. He tells Colleen to get ready to head to the monastery. The kid doesn't want to, but his father says he has no choice. He only needs to stay there for about 5 years. Hearing that, Rudian knows that 5 years from now is exactly when the chaos in the Empire begins, and he'll die like a leaf blown away by the wind, without even the slightest chance to fight back. Colleen, trying to muster courage, slams his hand on the table and declares that he'll restore the family's honor. He says he'll make sure what he achieves will be enough to elevate their name. His father says it doesn't matter, even if he achieves great merit, it won't be enough to stop Imperial intervention. That's when Colleen says he's after the Holy Sword of Daylight. Rudian freezes. He knows exactly which dungeon that is, and he's sure it's impossible for someone at Colleen's level. The boy's lost his mind. He's basically asking to die. Colleen keeps talking, claiming that the Imperial forces showed up because they heard about this dungeon too. But if they can get there first, their family would surely gain status and the support of everyone. Rudian is impressed. Colleen really has a natural talent for saying anything to get himself out of trouble without having the slightest idea if it's even possible. This part of the story is known as the Belly of Apophis, where a group of strange cultists tries to bring about the resurrection of a demon lord. But to subdue this dungeon, 100,000 people once marched, and in the end, every single one of them ended up in Apophis's belly. In fact, Rudian thinks this might have been what happened when dungeons first started appearing. Ever since then, people always send a reconnaissance team first. That's why Rudian is certain the leader will definitely wait for the dungeon to be explored before sending his son. Ricard then says the dungeon is extremely difficult. We still don't know what's inside, but Colleen takes his father's hands and tells him to trust him. He squeals he'll conquer it, and all he asks is that his father believe in him just once. Rudian thinks Colleen is so naive. He honestly believes his father wouldn't hesitate to send his son to his death. But of course his father accepts, saying he'll trust him this time. The Titan with the scarred eye looks uneasy, probably because it seems like he's going to get dragged into this mess too. Rudian wants to say something, but the father just tells him to take care of his son, and the two of them are practically glowing in a way he can't interrupt. The bond between father and son in that moment is just too strong. The father shouts, "That's my boy," and the son answers, "I'll bring back the sword." Poor Rudian, he knew there was no way he'd be able to escape this one. And here we are now, with Derek saying the monsters are coming and ordering everyone to get ready for battle. The problem is, Rudian has already seen what's ahead, a minotaur right at the dungeon entrance, which makes it clear this won't be easy. Still, he's feeling a bit excited. A minotaur is actually a good sign. Maybe Colleen's entrance will be different from the protagonist's, right? It was supposed to have much more overpowered stuff, like demons wielding ancient weapons. Now he's eager for them to move forward. With his crooked fingers, he starts thinking, 10 years after the war begins, the whole world will already be devastated. But before that happens, there's still some time. Time for him to save money, live in the mountains, and isolate himself from everyone. He's going to write his own happy ending peacefully. Meanwhile, Colleen is all excited, saying everything's going perfectly. Soon they recover the light of dawn and all the riches hidden in this dungeon. Derek tells him to shut up. Not everyone knows about this, and they're going to end up getting into serious trouble. But the blonde kid tells him not to worry, acting like there's nothing to be afraid of. And then, of course, he freezes. A rock falls right onto Rudian's head, and the whole place starts collapsing. Derek immediately says they're screwed. They've walked right into a trap and are surrounded on all sides. He charges forward, saying they'll have to break through the formation with sheer force, and orders them to open a path. But something else is happening farther back. Rudian grabs Colleen and tells him to run, wondering why it feels like the two of them are being hunted. Derek, on the other hand, keeps pushing forward, cutting through enemies and calls out for the young master, but he's stuck on a golem that's completely ignoring him and heading straight for the two of them. Rudian shoves Colleen aside, and it seems like he narrowly avoids being crushed. The boy falls to the ground in tears, while Rudian thinks this is a nightmare. If the blonde brat dies, he'll be executed, so we can't let anything happen to him. But before he can finish the thought, he takes a direct hit to the stomach from a massive paw. The kid gets sent flying, literally launched. Colleen and Derek are stunned as our boy crashes back down, suddenly calling for his status window out of nowhere. After flailing and yelling for it for a whole minute, he opens his eyes to find himself lying on a strange floor, confused. Could this be hell? He gets up, moves his arms, and realizes his body feels fine. He thanks the universe, saying his prayers must have reached some god somewhere. The strange part is he has no idea where this place is. He remembers a similar dungeon from the story, something like a place made of negative mana, or something along those lines. Then, out of nowhere, a voice says he's awakened. When he turns his head, there's a big floating eyeball with tentacles staring at him. He jumps in shock and apparently faints again. He demands to know what the hell this is and why it's so ugly. The creature completely ignores the insult and says it's been 1,000 years since it last saw a human. It thought only divine beings could appear here. so today is an amazing surprise. The thing starts stroking his face, leaving Ludian confused about what kind of creature this is. He asks where they are, and it says these are the ruins of an extinct civilization called Adora, something Ludian has never heard of before. Trying to gather more information, he asks if the creature is sealed here. The fluffy-looking monster says yes, it still can't leave because it hasn't received a master yet. It says it would be nice to have one. Ludian finds the whole situation suspicious and asks for the creature's identity. The creature says it's a 7th-generation artificial intelligence observer, something known as Arcadia. Looks like the people of Adora let their version of ChatGPT go completely off the rails. Huh? And what happened? Well, it wiped out the human race. And of course, it now wants Ludian to be its master. But Ludian's wary. He knows that something like this will definitely bring him endless trouble. Too late though, the thing's already made its move. In an instant, the status window pops up for him. Ludian, 17 years old, descendant of the Icegar family, and his stats are absolutely pathetic. As he's looking at the numbers in disbelief, it suddenly hits him. The status window he'd always wanted had finally appeared. Arcadia tells him not to get the wrong idea. He's not in some kind of game. Still, he'll be able to see his own stats and those of other people. There's a catch though. There's a penalty that prevents him from seeing details when the difference is too great, but being able to tell who he can and can't beat in a fight would drastically increase his odds of survival. Ludian wants to know the condition for accepting Arcadia. It turns out he has to be someone from the outside. He has no idea what that means. He'd always thought only gods could reach that level, but apparently he's exceeded expectations. He asks how Arcadia knew he was an outsider in the first place. Arcadia explains that his body naturally reacts to the presence of an outsider. On top of that, with a body like his, he'd be able to recover other terminals that its creator left scattered around. Prototypes known as El Dorado, items for exploration, healing, transportation, and combat. Basically, there are 6 accessories he can equip to grow stronger and gain more abilities. Once Ludian collects all of them, Arcadia's body will be fully activated. Ludian starts thinking that with opportunities like this, maybe he actually could create a happy ending for himself. If that's the case, he agrees to register as Arcadia's master. This world is going to plunge into chaos sooner or later anyway, so it's better to be prepared. The two seal it in a surprisingly cute way, linking pinkies. Nothing unusual, except judging by the pointed eyelashes, Ludian figures it must be female. Then again, do artificial intelligences even have a gender? Who knows, but apparently, this one does. Arcadia scratches its chin, well the spot where a chin should be, and explains that its current body isn't much use. They'll need to recover this Shambhala combat prototype. With that, it could go toe-to-toe even with a god. Ludian feels something's off. This little thing is way too eager for him to collect these items. But he doesn't have much choice, so he stands up, saying he needs to get back to his companions. Little by little, he'll figure out how to recover these terminals. Its nickname becomes Addy, and it knows every exit from this place. It even tells Rudian that he should have died when he hit the ground earlier, was the one who caught his limbs and kept him from exploding on impact. He wonders if that was just the author's trick or if he really was fated to die there. That's when he looks down and sees a completely dead adventurer. He wonders who this person even was. Not only had he gotten past the dungeon's core, but he'd made it this far inside. Addy explains that he was an adventurer who invaded this place 10 years ago. He managed to reach that point by avoiding every monster, but he didn't have the qualifications to enter the room, so he died waiting. Rudian just thinks it's a miserable way to go, standing in front of a door that would never open for him. And so he starts collecting everything he can while Addy comments that it's a little, well, cruel. Rudian says his own life is cruel enough to justify stealing from the dead. The creature wonders if that isn't a bit too low, but Rudian just pulls an item from his pocket and says it should be worth about 10 gold. Then he notices the name of the person, Abel Retstain. He stops for a moment thinking and suddenly remembers exactly who Abel Retstain is. Instantly, he falls backward in shock, saying this is the worst possible name to find. That's because it's the name of the true protagonist of this world. But it doesn't make any sense. Abel was the kid who spread his arms for Truckcon and got sent to this place. He was reincarnated into the family of a baron, had legendary artifacts, and wielded an absurdly powerful sword. It should have been impossible for him to die at this point in the story. So why is there nothing here but his bones? And on top of that, the skeleton looked like it belonged to an older man, not a teenager. Addy asks what's wrong, but Rudian just says it's nothing. He knows that at this point in the timeline, Abel isn't far from this region and is living as a child in a certain household. For now, he decides to stay calm and think it's probably just a coincidence, most likely not the same person. They keep moving deeper into the cave, and what do you know? There's even a perfect little minimap. Rudian thinks the tentacled thing is actually pretty useful. Eventually, they spot a group ahead. It's the same people from before, and he happily calls out to the young master. But strangely, Derek and the others all turn toward him, saying that if he takes one more step, they'll cut him down. Addy is already waving a little white flag, asking what's going on because Rudian himself is confused. What happened while he was gone? Derek says that Rudian fell from such a height it would have been impossible to survive, so he must be some kind of monster or a copy. Ludian realizes what he's saying makes perfect sense from their perspective, but he still comes up with a clumsy excuse, claiming that when he started falling, he grabbed onto a branch, slammed into the side, dropped all the way down, and somehow survived. Derek, however, already has his sword at Ludian's neck and tells him to stay quiet. Unfortunately, he looks just about ready to end him. The blade is already in motion when suddenly, Ludian shouts the name Cynthia and starts telling a story about how Derek once tried to hit on this Cynthia, only for her to find out and how he ended up clinging to her waist, crying and begging her to come back. Derek tells him to please stop while also ordering the soldiers not to look over. Ludian knows he might still get killed later, but for now he's confirmed they recognize him. Kalyan, glowing with his usual energy, comes over asking why he took so long. Ludian just says he fell a long way down. At least Kalyan could easily tell it was really him, which put Ludian at ease. He tells Derek not to worry too much. If something happens, he can just kill the boy. Ludian sighs, at least relieved that he made it out of this alive. But as they walk through the dungeon, Eddie says the hostility of this place hasn't faded yet. There's still something useful hidden here. Ludian finds it strange that nobody else notices Eddie, but the creature explains that only Ludian can see him, no other being in this world can. Now it makes sense why he needed to be an outsider. The problem is, this thing has been waiting for someone to arrive. Doesn't that mean there could be other people from another world? At that moment, a portal opens and a creature is sitting on a throne. A sword of dawnlight is there, only it's in the hands of a demon known as the Death Knight. Kalyan, of course, gets excited at the sight, saying they found the sword. The Deuce information was correct. If that's true, then the demon on the throne must be the former Lord Simmer. The monster stands and says he's disappointed. He thought it would be the Knights of Delphian who'd arrive. Derek immediately points his sword and tells everyone to attack. As he charges his aura, he asks why Lord Simmer betrayed his family and abandoned his chivalry like this. The monster simply replies that no one has noticed that the ground they're standing on is already rotting. On top of that, Simmer says they don't even deserve an answer, and stretches out his hands and summons a swarm of skeletons all around them. Derek keeps his cool and orders squads 2 and 3 to deal with the smaller creatures, while squad 1 focuses on the boss. Orders given, everyone rushes into battle. The fight breaks out on all sides while Addy and Ludian hang back, analyzing the situation. Derek seems fired up, but the problem is that any cut they land on the demon doesn't seem to do anything. It just regenerates instantly. Derek starts wondering if the creature's life force might be infinite. Meanwhile, Kalyan keeps telling the soldiers to push forward, insisting they'll win if they keep going. Ludian asks what's going on, and Addy explains there's some external force influencing everything here. Then Addy, sounding unusually girlish now, hair and all, tells him to use that amazing eye he received. He activates it, and the status window for Lord Simmer pops up. Strength minus 127. Combat power over 8,000. On top of that, he's linked to the dungeon's energy core, giving him immortality and infinite mana. Ludian is still wondering what the hell is going on when he spots a strange red crystal on Simmer's back. Addy explains that it's a bloodstone which can act as either a dungeon core or a mana reservoir. This place was created by mages 500 years ago, and unless Derek does something insane, there's no way they're taking this guy down. Ludian starts wondering if the best move would be to destroy it. Addy says it would be easy, except of course the demon isn't going to just let that happen. Simmer keeps summoning more and more skeletons. Addy, practically handing him an atomic bomb, says he should throw himself at it, even though the chance of dying is insanely high. Ludian glances around and sees everyone hesitating. If he doesn't act, they're all going to die here. One of the knights tells Derek they need to retreat. At this rate, no one will survive. The problem is, Kalyan isn't the type to back down, even though they've already tried pulling him out. Derek is wondering how he's going to get them out of this mess when Ludian tells him to look at the gem behind the throne. It seems way too suspicious. Derek takes a look, recognizes that strange object, and immediately calls for Arnold and Chris to push toward it. The problem is, the two are stuck fighting off a horde of skeletons. The captain knows they need a solution. The exit is blocked, and the enemy numbers keep growing. Addy asks if telling everyone about the crystal was really a good idea, since now the monster knows too. Ludian says that's perfect. Now that the demon knows, he can take a certain risk. He doesn't have any mana, but he does have this little trick up his sleeve that might work. Hiding behind a pillar, he knows that if he's caught, it's over for him. Arnold keeps pushing forward while Derek struggles to hold Simmer back. Unfortunately, Simmer sends a slash tearing across the ground, ripping through the dungeon. A wave of aura like that could only come from a master swordsman. Kalyan wants to run, but now the exit is completely sealed off. Derek orders everyone to take advantage of the moment. If the monster just used that power, he'll be low on energy. But then he realizes several soldiers are already dead. Gripping his sword tightly, he says that as a knight of the Lionhearts, he can't die like this. Even if he falls here, he'll make sure the young lord escapes. That's when he notices Simmer turn his head to the side, looking distracted. And there's Ludian, slipping past like no one can even see him. Ludian whispers to Addy that the plan worked, and Addy replies that he's made it pretty far. Then Simmer calls him insolent and leaps in to smash his head in. But Derek steps in front, saying he's not going to let him kill the boy just like that. Derek tells Rudian that if he destroys the core, he'll forgive him for everything he revealed earlier. Our boy takes off running with a massive hammer in hand, leaping forward with the certainty that he has to finish it in a single strike. But suddenly, a voice asks who this insect is that dares to destroy the heart. The voice says that the one who tried to destroy Castle's heart will now pay with his life. The name Castle rings a bell for Rudian. She's a lich girl who could slay dragons with a single special word. She was considered a national threat, and now she's standing right here. She starts chanting a word, and Rudian knows that if she finishes, he's dead. She's casting the certain death spell, but strangely, nothing happens to him. Inside the crystal, she looks confused. He's standing right in front of her, and she's wondering why her absolute word didn't work. Rudian realizes he didn't manage to hit the core in time, but at the same time, he didn't die either. The creature begins casting multiple high-level spells. Muttering that something is wrong, he has divine class protection on him. Rudian asks if it was 80, and 80 admits it with a thumbs up. No low-grade curse like that could touch him. 80 casually fixes its hair, saying that even though it's a bit limited right now, that kind of thing is basic. The protagonist is baffled. This was Ninth Circle magic, so why did the thing just call it basic? He already feels overshadowed. How strong is this little creature act like Castle's power is nothing special? Castle keeps firing off spells, trying to kill him while shouting at him to stay away. Rudian remembers that she said the crystal is her heart, and he wonders why he wouldn't destroy it. So he asks Eddie if he can break it in one strike, and Eddie says yes. The crystal's structure is extremely fragile. He raises the hammer, and Castle quickly offers to give him anything if he spares her life. He asks if she can give him her life, but she says obviously not, anything except that. Treasures, knowledge, everything she's acquired in her lifetime could be his. Rudian is gripping the hammer so tightly it's about to explode in his hands. Meanwhile, Castle tells him to hurry up and kill Derek instead. But Rudian says it's too late. She'll be shattered before that happens, and slams the hammer into the crystal, ending all her ambitions. Immediately, everyone in the dungeon relaxes as Simmer drops his sword, writhing in pain. He collapses in front of Derek, and Rudian notices a strange energy flowing toward him. The system announces that he has absorbed the energy from a high-grade blood demon stone. His physical ability has increased, and he's gained 20 mana. That's huge considering his strength stat was only 15. Now he has more mana than anything else. He's practically in tears, feeling that blue energy coursing through his body. All the abuse he endured in that household finally paid off. Still, he thinks 20 is pretty low for a 500-year-old stone. 80 analyzes it and says, as expected, Rudian's absorption rate is extremely low. It's because 80 applied a filter so he could absorb it safely. He only received about 8% of the original amount, and strangely enough, 80 is siphoning off the rest for itself. 80 explains that the reason is because that mana is actually a form of demonic energy. Rudian could have absorbed it all and had over 1,000 mana, but in doing so, he would have become a demon, and that would have been useless to him. Rudian realizes 80 just saved him. If he had absorbed all of it, Derek would have killed him on the spot. And speaking of Derek, he's now calling out to him from behind. Rudian knows everyone saw him absorb that demonic energy, so this could be bad. But then Derek places a hand on his shoulder, and everyone starts thanking him, saying they won thanks to him. They have no idea how Rudian pulled it off, since ID is they're saying it's a secret. Back at the castle, someone is celebrating. Of course, it's the father, saying Colleen really managed to win. Not a single vassal in the entire empire will have the courage to doubt his abilities again. The future of the house looks bright. Colleen is there boasting that results like this are only natural for someone with his talent. His father says that the moment Colleen inherits the house, the family will have a glory it has never seen before. Meanwhile, Rudian is in the background, realizing he's been completely left out of all of this. And to make it worse, the loot haul was massive. Carriage after carriage of items from the dungeon just keeps arriving. The father says that in 1 week, the Duke will send someone to examine the sword, and without a doubt, it'll be someone impossible to ignore. He tells his son to make sure to leave an excellent impression on these Imperial people. While the father keeps praising him, Colleen is practically drooling with joy. Rudian already knew there wouldn't be much praise left for him, and the real problem is that if Colleen becomes famous, his screw-ups will become national news, which will make Rudian's life even harder. Still, for now, he's fine staying by Colleen's side, since it's been worth it so far. The father then says that now he can finally send his son out into society and turns to Rudian. He says that all the knights, including Derek, have spoken very highly of him. Rudian doesn't care much for compliments, but the father doesn't stop. He says he's heard that Rudian snuck in, took down the monster, and that he's incredible. He's counting on Rudian to always be by Colleen's side. Of course, that's the last thing Rudian wants, at least until a pile of money is shoved into his hands and he says, "Long live Colleen." He's given a year's worth of salary plus a bonus of 10 gold coins, which is a lot and even gets vacation time. 80 is there too, wearing a tiny crown, saying that money is happiness. And honestly, Rudian's no fool. The most important item, this book surrounded by human guards, he kept for himself. It's a research grimoire containing the lifetime knowledge of a mage. Something like this could buy an entire castle. They definitely won't be needing money for a while. The question that still bothers him, though, is why the knight who stole the holy sword ended up becoming Castley's vassal. In the story, that sword first appears in the hands of someone known as Saint Croix, but no one knows how he got it. Maybe because at that point in the story, much bigger events were happening. Rudian has no idea. The guy wasn't the protagonist or anything, but it's still puzzling. Eddie tells him to focus. Their first enemies will be the demon race, and they need to recover the terminals, especially now that Castley is dead and the demons have no choice but to start marching. For Rudian, the best move would be to get the demon sword first. Eddie finds that strange, saying the holy sword is far better for fighting demons. But Rudian explains that holy swords are extremely hard to obtain, not to mention their demon magnets. Plus, he knows of a demon sword right there in the Escar region. If they could get the Diablo sword, everything else would be easier. The next chapter begins in the village of Uberan, a small and abandoned place with only about 500 people. In the home of a man named Marco, the village chief, he's begging Rudian for help. Rudian had wanted to spend some time in his hometown before going after Diablo. But when this dwarf came to talk to him, he figured something was going on in the village. And now that he's here, he finds out Marco is in tears because a flood of letters demanding tax collection has arrived. Apparently, the problem is that these people literally can't read. Marco is asking Rudian to look through the letters and see what they say. Rudian tells him to hire someone who can read, but Marco says that's far too expensive. So he agrees, feeling confident he can sort this out quickly, all while noticing that lately his body feels full of energy and his mind is sharper, probably thanks to that mana. Not long after, he's handing everything back with Marco on his knees thanking him. Rudian is feeling pretty proud of himself. After all, working in Kaling's household made things like this feel easy. Marco then tells him to visit Rebecca's house tomorrow after sunrise. Rudian asks why, and Marco explains it's because she's been taking care of his house the entire time he's been gone, so of course he should go thank her. Rudian, trembling, says he never asked her to do that, but Marco insists she goes there every day and promised to keep it tidy until he came back. The only problem is her presence has already left 3 guys in the village lovesick. This girl must be dangerous because Rudian is on the floor groaning. And right then, the door opens and in she walks. Honestly, she looks too soft and puffy-cheeked to be that dangerous. Something's not adding up. Best to tread carefully so you don't fall into a trap. Marco tells Rebecca to head out, saying Lord Rudian is very tired. But she steps inside, gives a little playful lick to her lips, and apologizes. Rudian glares at her, and she comes in with a slight pout, accusing him of being mean. Why would he look at her like that after being away for so long? Here's her backstory. She takes his hand, runs it across her face, and says he's finally back so they can have some fun again. Rudian thinks she's way too charming for a rural town like this. Naturally, the poor guys here are all just longing from a distance. Something suspicious, because the moment she approached Rudian, Marco slipped out the door. Rudian knows that any man who rejected a beauty like this would be called a eunuch, or worse. But the truth is, he wants nothing to do with her because she's nothing but a death sentence. One of the main reasons he prefers being Kaling's squire is this girl. She eventually becomes a blood witch who drains energy, one of the heroines of the main game, and one of the ones who betrays poor Abel, stabbing him in the back while saying she loves him to death. She's the dangerously unhinged Yandere type. One day she's in love with you, the next she's trying to kill you. She's also from the Bloodrain family. Just the aura of these people is enough to make anyone think twice about crossing them. Her bloodline is so rare that not long ago there was even an attempt to kidnap her, something Rudian himself stopped. Ever since then, she's shown an interest in him and eventually revealed her true surname, Bloodrain. Up until then, he had no idea. When he found out, he bolted. He never imagined she was that Bloodrain. Still, judging by her eye and hair color, she hasn't fully awakened yet, which means it's still safe. And she knows how to play the game, standing there all glowing and blushing, asking if he's tired and wants some help. Rudian says no, all while looking for a way to get out of there. Unfortunately, the more distance he tries to put between them, the more persistent she gets. It's a classic story. She even leaves saying she's going to make him a delicious meal and will be waiting for him. That relaxes him a little, and he thinks that at least she hasn't shown any signs of insanity yet. Of course, she's still a ticking time bomb, so he has to be careful. For the poor Rudian, the one who used to live in this body, turning down affection was nearly impossible when he was an orphan. The only people he knew in this town were Marco and his dear friend Rebecca. If it weren't for the fact that she'd one day stab you in the back, kill you, and drink all your blood, he might have enjoyed it. The scene then shifts to a camp where a soldier calls for the captain, warning that they're too far into enemy territory. The captain says they're only following orders, but a stocky soldier argues the orders have gone too far. Sneaking this deep past the border is madness. He doesn't really buy this talk about some hidden master living in the area. The captain looks thoughtful. He knows the order is absurd, but it came directly from the army's commander, so all he can do is follow it. In theory, a great master, a Ninth Circle mage, is supposed to appear here. On top of that, they've received information that the young lord of the Icegar family has obtained the holy sword. Maybe all of this is connected. 3 days later, there's Rebecca as usual, bringing food to Rudian, but he notices the village seems uneasy and asks what's going on. She explains that it looks like some bandits from the southern region have been showing up nearby. Lubian knows the southern region is just around the corner, so it's normal for people from there to cross into Iskar territory to steal. Still, the guards usually deal with them quickly, so why haven't they been taken down by the patrol yet? Rebecca says that since yesterday, every adventurer passing through the wall has been warning the villagers. He asks if the chief has said anything, and she tells him he apparently went to investigate. Lubian finds the whole thing suspicious. He's been in this body for 3 years now and has never once seen bandits in this region. Just as he suspected, something might be starting to move. 2 days later, near Iskar territory, Lubian arrives in front of a dungeon. In the original story, this place was known as one of the easier ones to find. You don't need a key or anything. Just wait for a certain solar or lunar eclipse. Eddie comments that it's well hidden, but someone must have discovered it before. So why does Lubian think no one has taken what's inside? He smiles at the sight of the sword and says it's because everyone who found it died.